Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into what has to be one of the most mind-bending contradictions in all of modern biology. We're talking about the ultimate paradox here, a chemical that's absolutely infamous worldwide for fueling a massive public health crisis through addiction, yet it also boasts a staggering 100,000-year history as a revered, sacred medicine. I'm talking, of course, about nicotine. And as we're going to see today, recent scientific discoveries are actually suggesting that this highly stigmatized compound might just hold the blueprint for treating some of the most complex, devastating immune storms of our modern era. I know, it sounds almost impossible, doesn't it? Could the exact same isolated molecule that's behind millions of cigarette addictions actually possess hidden, highly targeted therapeutic properties? To really understand why top researchers and desperate patients are suddenly turning to nicotine patches to fight the debilitating effects of long COVID, we have to do something a bit difficult. We have to completely separate the molecule itself from the commercial cigarette. We need to look purely at the biology. And to do that, well, we actually have to start by looking backwards. Section 1. A sacred ancient medicine. Okay, to really get this, we've got to completely mentally separate those modern, chemically laden cigarettes you buy at a gas station from the pure Nicotiana rustica plant. See, for tens of thousands of years, as part of an incredible 100,000-year history of holistic use, indigenous peoples across the Americas revered this plant. They used it in very deeply controlled ceremonial healing contexts. Its medicinal reputation is truly ancient. Get this, we've even found traces of tobacco in the tissue of the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II. That dates all the way back to 1213 BC. Fast forward a minute to 1571, and you've got the European physician Nicolas Menardes literally writing a medical textbook detailing 36 different cures derived from tobacco. By 1588, Thomas Harriot was actively documenting its health benefits in Virginia. The point is, it was revered as a powerful panacea way before it was ever weaponized for mass addiction. Moving right along to Section 2, the nicotinic receptor network. So why on earth does our body even care about a plant chemical like nicotine in the first place? Well, it all comes down to the hardware. We're talking about a highly complex, specialized network of receptors that are distributed all over your body. Let's define exactly what we're looking at here. Nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, or NACHRs for short. Think of these as master switches on the outside of your cells. Structurally, they are pentameric ligand-gated ion channels, which is just a fancy way of saying they are incredibly complex biological doorways. Normally, your body uses its own neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, to flip these switches and regulate internal communication. But these doorways are uniquely shaped so that nicotine perfectly fits the lock too. Now, for the longest time, science thought these were really just hanging out in the nervous system. But we now know they are everywhere, especially on our immune cells. And that brings us to this mapping. Specific receptor subtypes, like the alpha-7 and the alpha-4 beta-2, they aren't just chilling in your brain. They are actively expressed right on the surface of your body's crucial immune soldiers, your macrophages, your T cells, and your dendritic cells. And here's the real kicker. Their primary function on these immune cells isn't to give you a buzz or get you high, it's to regulate anti-inflammatory signaling. They literally act as the vital brakes on your immune system. Which perfectly sets up Section 3, suppressing the immune storm. All right, let's break down exactly how those brakes work, step by step. Modern holistic therapists and researchers recently unlocked this critical biological mechanism known as the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. It's fascinating. When pure nicotine is introduced to the system, it acts as an agonist, an activator. It physically binds directly to that alpha-7 receptor on an immune cell, like a macrophage. Boom, the channel opens, flooding the cell with calcium ions. Now, this elevated calcium acts like a literal physical roadblock. It stops a specific protein called NFKB from crossing into the cell's nucleus, which would normally tell the cell to release inflammatory markers. By blocking that step, nicotine literally shuts down dangerous runaway cytokine storms right at the source. Now for the twist. Section 4. How COVID hijacks receptors. So what happens when a totally novel pathogen figures out how to manipulate those exact same brakes? Honestly, the sheer evolutionary cunning of the SARS-CoV-2 virus is just staggering. When researchers started closely examining the viral spike protein, they found a specific sequence of amino acids that is entirely neurotoxin-like. And I mean that literally. It bears a striking structural similarity to things like rabies virus glycoproteins and, incredibly, actual snake venom, specifically alpha-cobra toxin. This neurotoxin-like sequence is what allows the virus to physically bypass normal pathways and bind directly to our body's nicotinic receptors. Now, at first, scientists proposed what they called the displacement theory. Basically, the idea that the viral spike protein just parked itself right in the receptor's keyhole, directly blocking our natural acetylcholine from attaching. Simple enough, right? Well, actually, recent pharmacological studies have revealed it's doing something way sneakier. It's called complex allosteric modulation. The virus binds to a completely different site on the outside of the receptor. By attaching there, it physically warps the receptor's shape and fundamentally alters how it functions. It doesn't just block a signal, it absolutely scrambles the entire communication line. And this scrambling is believed to be a massive contributor to the intense autonomic dysfunction we see happening in long COVID. Section 5. Nicotine as potential therapy. Think about this. If the virus is hijacking these exact receptors to cause this chronic, system-wide dysfunction, what would happen if we introduced a really strong natural receptor activator, like pure nicotine, to try and force the system to reset? Well, this isn't just a theoretical question anymore. It is leaped right out of the lab and into real-world clinical application. And the human stakes here are just profound. Take Troy Roach, a patient who was suffering from long COVID and completely debilitating post-exertional malaise. After trying nicotine patches, he noted his cognitive capacity jumped dramatically. He said, "I didn't have to count spoons." If you're not familiar with that term, counting spoons refers to the very limited units of energy that chronically ill patients have to carefully, painstakingly manage every single day. Through grassroots patient-led groups, thousands of people are actually self-experimenting with this right now, reporting massive relief from severe brain fog and fatigue. But I want to be incredibly clear about something. The methodology being used here strictly utilizes a low-dose transdermal protocol. Literally no one in the medical community is recommending smoking. By using standard over-the-counter skin patches, patients are getting a very slow, steady delivery of pure nicotine, which completely avoids the thousands of toxic carcinogens you'd find in commercial tobacco smoke. The working hypothesis is that because pure nicotine has a remarkably high binding affinity for these specific receptors, it might actually help outcompete and displace that viral spike protein, eventually restoring normal receptor function and bringing the autonomic nervous system back into balance. But of course, nicotine is still a complex, systemic stimulant. It definitely isn't the right choice for everyone, especially folks dealing with certain hyperadrenergic heart conditions. So where do we go from here? The future of cholinergic therapy is all about precision. Pharmacologists right now are working intensely to identify exactly which long COVID subtypes respond best to this kind of receptor targeting. They're painstakingly mapping the exact binding affinity of that spike protein. The ultimate goal? To develop highly targeted pharmaceutical therapies that can give us these amazing anti-inflammatory, receptor resetting benefits, but entirely without the cardiovascular and systemic side effects of pure nicotine. It's honestly a breathtaking convergence of ancient history and cutting-edge molecular biology, isn't it? A secret indigenous plant, which was tragically turned into a deadly commercial product, is now suddenly yielding biological secrets about how to fight a 21st century viral pandemic. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought to ponder today. If nature's single most stigmatized compound can teach us how to unpick the cellular wreckage of long COVID, what other ancient medicines are out there right now, just waiting to be decoded by cellular science? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.